given a name to my pain. The Batman.
Always waiting for some Batman to save you.
It's simple. We kill
The Batman of Gotham.
You don't really think you'll win, do you?
I'm Batman.
Hello and welcome to episode 158 of the Batman on Film podcast. BOF is the sponsor as well as a proud member of the Batman Podcast Network. Check out all the shows over at batmanpodcastnetwork.com and follow our Twitter at BatPodNetwork. If you're listening to us on iTunes, if you take the time to rate and review the show, we'll read it on the air. Batman on Film is also now on Patreon. If you like what we do here at BOF, whether it's the podcasts, vlogs, or the website itself and you want to help support us if you're so inclined, please head over to patreon.com/BatmanOnFilm and sign up. I'm the host of the BOF Podcast, Ryan Haas, and on tonight's show, we are going to catch up on the latest Batman headlines and then dive into an exclusive BOF Podcast interview. And to help me do that is none other than Mr. Ryan Lauer. How are you doing?
None other than, wow, thank you. Appreciate that. I'm doing okay, fighting a flu just in time for Chicago's first snow this week, so yay. Yeah, I'm excited. Hooray.
Well, if you're snowed in, then you can watch Batman Beyond on Blu-ray because I know you love Batman Beyond.
What? You knew? You knew I got my copy?
I heard through the... Did you?
Nope.
Damn it.
And
You're ruining the segment.
I'm not saying that they messed up my delivery because I never placed an order. Good.
And with that, that wraps up today's episode.
Yeah. Lauer soiled all over Batman by not liking Batman Beyond. I don't not like it. It's just kind of, I almost, before one episode is done, I'm kind of ready for the episode to be done. I've started to make
you're not
my way
the first person I've heard say that about that show. And that it pains me when people say that because I love Batman Beyond. It is just, I don't know, it really hit me at the right time, I think. And I always loved the fact that it was in continuity with the animated series. So if you were a kid like me, and then you watched all the shows like me, and then you were waiting for what they would do next like me, I just thought, what are the chances of that happening? That they would make a show like this that's set in the future that actually isn't connected to the comics at all. They kind of forged their own path. I always thought that was super interesting, and it felt fresh at the time, and I just think it feels fresh now just because it's so different from everything else, and it's so popular, and it's got its own following, and it's sprouted up its own little segment of the Bat universe, with it being in comics, and it's had its own, it has a life of its own, this Batman Beyond. So
it did spawn one of the top Batman animated movies with Return of the Joker. Now that one, I really like that one.
So you do like Return of the Joker? I'm
okay. I do, and I don't not like Beyond. I just have to be in the mood, and I can't really binge it. Whereas the animated series, anytime, throw it on, and I'll just watch.
Yeah, I guess you do have to kind of switch your mind into Batman Beyond mode. But like I said, this brand new Blu-ray set is out. The day we are recording this is the day that the Blu-ray set came out. And Bill's got a video thing on BOF where he does an unboxing of it and everything. It's a really nice set.
He even juggled some of the discs. That was pretty fun.
Did he?
Yeah.
Sweet.
Yeah, check it out, everybody.
Yeah. So they were taking cues from last year's Batman animated series, box set, which was also really well done. And this one, and you got little miniature pops of Batman and Joker and Harley Quinn in that set. But in this set, you get like a full-sized Batman Beyond, limited edition Batman Beyond pop, which is pretty neat. And in addition to the complete series remastered on Blu-ray, and and a host of unique special features to that set as well. And I've already watched the first 2 episodes tonight on with the Blu-ray quality, and it's great. It just looks great. Haven't really dug back into it in quite a while, so I was definitely in the mood for it, especially after getting to cover it. Covered the press panel, press line for it at New York Comic Con to talk to everybody about it, which you can still see on BOF's YouTube channel. And I'll probably post those interviews as a show at some point, probably in the next episode. But
I will probably let's just say it'll probably end up on my shelf. On my bat shelf.
If you're on the fence, if you're one of those people like Lauer,
yeah, like me,
if you have DC Universe, of course, the first season is in HD for free, quote, as part of that service. But I just waited for the Blu-ray because I wanted to wait for the Blu-ray.
I need Batman on disc.
Batman on disc.
And
yeah, that's the spin-off podcast.
Yeah. And so like eventually, I mean, even the animated series now, like, there'll be random sales even online sometimes, and I'll see, and it's like, hey, the Blu-ray set's $40 or something like that.
Oh,
maybe
yeah. So like the initial set that came out for Beyond today is this deluxe edition, and it's numbered. For people that care about numbers, there's only 50,000 of these. Mine is like in the 1900s.
Already spoken for.
Yeah. Well. So what that means is after these sell out, and hopefully they do, there will be a cheaper disc only sans extras version, just like the animated series. But they've said, like, if this set sells really well, then that could open the door for maybe a Batman Beyond revival, which I would be all for.
Kevin Conroy, who hugged you at New York Comic Con. I'm sure he'd be game. It sounds like he's always like, yeah, give me more and I'll do more. So,
yeah, well, he'll be Batman in whatever they ask him to be Batman in. So
maybe we need to start our own like podcast series and say, like, hey Kevin, would you mind coming on and being Batman for this?
Yeah, just do an audio drama thing.
I'm like, you met Ryan Haas, you know him.
Yeah.
You have a connection now.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I can't wait to see him as live action Batman, or live action Bruce Wayne rather, in the Crisis crossover here very soon. But who knows how that's going to turn out. And we're going to see, I don't know if we talked about this, we're going to see Alexander Knox again. Like, that's blowing my mind. Yeah. Oh, spoilers. Like, they're bringing back Robert Wuhl as Alexander Knox, apparently, in this Crisis crossover.
This is one, just because I think it got so out of hand that I'm just like, started to avoid anything that's said about Crisis, because I'm just like, nah. But, okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Like him and the, the Smallville people, and allegedly they're going to have DC Universe Titans are going to be in it for a scene. Like, there's so many reports, I don't know what's even true anymore, and apparently like one of the actresses from the Birds of Prey TV show is going to be in it. Like, that thing is just nuts.
Yeah, and so I just kind of expect, like you said with Conroy and Bruce Wayne, I don't expect him to he's going to do a scene in the suit and he's going to jump off a building and take out 19 guys. He's like
old Bruce Wayne.
Like a really quick, he says like 2 sentences. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if that's what happens.
I bet my guess is that it's going to be something that's part of the Batwoman episode, and he'll probably have a scene with like Ruby Rose or something, some kind of pivotal thing. If he's an alternate futuristic old Bruce Wayne or something like that. But still, it'll be fun. It'll be fun to watch.
Yeah, now, oh man, I can't wait to see what Robert Wuhl. And I hope all he says
6 is good.
They ask, yes, I was going to say, or he says 6. 6 is good. That's all that he says. Can you imagine how happy everybody would be? Oh,
Yeah.
my word.
Yeah.
All right. Well, if he's not in it,
But
I'm coming after you, Hoss.
well, that's what I heard from the internet, which is never wrong.
No, never.
But some other stuff I'm excited to watch about is all this new HBO Max stuff. You've been following this a little bit better than me, but they just seem to have this event thing today, and they unveiled HBO Max. Of course, is Warner Brothers' crazy new streaming service. Everybody's got to have one. 6 I thought was good, but now they keep making more than that.
6 is good. Now it's 7. 6 was good.
But when it comes out May 2020, it's going to have a bunch of all the DC movies from the last 5+ years on day one or something, and there's going to be original TV shows, which has led people to question where the DC Universe's place is in all this, which they've already said DC Universe isn't going anywhere. I mean, it currently seems like it's an addendum to that. If you're a DC fan, but yeah, go ahead.
They made a statement. I think right after the presentation or something, and just basically kind of said
calm down.
Which listen, if something was happening, they would still say this. But I feel like there's no reason for panic of
true.
Because notice it's kind of I think. The concern is just DC Universe is involved in this. I'm but it's just kind of it's just another tier. If you only
it's
want
another
DC
pillar.
Universe, just pay for DC Universe for $8 a month and whatnot. But if you're one that also likes HBO, it's well, pay a little more and you get the whole package. So it's kind of
it would be nice if they made a way to get both things at a discount or something. But DC Universe. You can't just replicate that with HBO Max. And that'd be weird. It was hey, now we got comics and blah, blah, blah. It's DC Universe is more than just original content. That's a big draw, yes, but they've got original content and the older content and DC Daily and, all the, thousands of comic books and the community stuff. It's its own little unique thing. And I would hate for it to be super affected by this HBO Max thing.
Yeah, I'd even say that I think I use the comics more than the shows because, especially, I don't watch any of the movies because I have all the movies.
Right, exactly. I just said, I could have watched Batman Beyond for a couple months, but I didn't, and I bought the box set instead. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's I constantly kind of go to DC Universe for right now Titans, which is freaking awesome this season.
It is
but then
good this
I
season.
am going back and finding because comic Twitter is actually a great place to go, and I'm oh crap, I don't remember this issue of whatever, and then it's there in DC Universe, so read it quick or download it quick or something. So I'm constantly going to the comic section of that.
I am too. Somebody will say something or mention something, and then I'll just be I will go find it on DC Universe and then add it to a list or something.
Yep.
And then be okay, this is my reading list. And yeah, it's super handy. Or it's super handy for me to remember what certain runs are. Even if I'm at the comic store, I've saved all my Strange Apparitions arc, the Rogers and Englehart arc. And I'm wait, was this issue of Detective part of that? And then I'll look it up and be yep, I don't have that one. And so it's handy. That app is really nice.
Yeah.
But what are the other big draws, big announcements about HBO Max that you wanted to talk about?
Well, obviously the fact that South Park will be exclusively on HBO Max starting next summer. I mean, obviously part of it's a DC thing. Yeah, I think that just came out today. Which
so it was on Hulu.
Yeah. So if you have Hulu, you've got 7 months to watch all your South Park, all 23 seasons of South Park. Or should have bought the DVDs. Yeah,
I just sold all my DVDs of South Park.
I actually was a season by season, and I got 14 or 15. I'm how often am I going to rewatch these?
Yeah, that's what happened to me. I'm they're all on Hulu.
Sold them.
I still have my Simpsons DVDs though. I haven't been able to give those up yet.
And you know what? You shouldn't. Just keep going.
I got all my Simpsons. I got all my Garfield and Friends. I got
Garfield and Friends. Lucky.
Yeah, you're not the first person I've heard to be glad that I have those.
I have the first one. I've wanted the others, and
There's 5 volumes of that.
I'm sorry, we're going off on a rant here. I was at a Target, so I had the first volume when they first started putting them on DVD, and I bought it and I loved it, and then I couldn't find them, and then it was like Target was doing just like trying to get rid of everything, and they put out all the rest of them, and they were only like $7 on clearance for whatever stupid reason. I didn't buy them. I think I was in a rush or something, and then right after that, nobody had them. And then you can buy them used online for like $50 a piece or some crap like that.
Have they gone up or something? Because people are they're scarce. I think I bought mine at like Sam Goody, like when they came out, like and I would like
Sam Goody.
I would keep looking up when the when the release dates were, because I tell you what, that show holds up. It is so good.
It is hilarious.
It's one of those shows where it's like they knew. It's kind of like Batman animated series in a way where like. You can tell that they were making that cartoon for them. And it just happened to be like a kid's show, but it's like kind of like they're just having fun with it. And it gets so esoteric in terms of like in-jokes about things that have happened on previous episodes. It just is so ridiculous. It's
brilliant. I'm not kidding when I say that I LOL watching it by myself now.
Yeah, like, for real. Yeah, I think that's why I haven't gotten rid of them, because they're really good.
If you ever get to that point, you better let me know first.
Oh no,
okay.
Yeah.
Thank goodness.
Yeah.
All right, so Garfield on film, a BOF spinoff coming summer 2020.
But HBO Max, we got to
HBO Max.
Back on that.
Okay,
they
here we
announced,
go.
Yes,
they announced 3 DC shows. And let's start with we'll hit up the big one third. The one is I think DC Superhero High,
right?
With Elizabeth Banks is producing,
right?
And it's almost like a high school, but all of your favorite DC characters are high schoolers,
right? So it's one of those like, this isn't made for us kind of shows, like your fanboy boys, like. Which is fine. DC is such a wide-ranging brand now that I'm glad. It makes me happy when they make stuff like this, where it's like you have things like this. You have and I watch DC Daily every day, and it blows my mind when they come up with stuff like the Swamp Kid thing. Have you seen that? Like the kids' books that they're doing,
no.
That stuff blows my mind, where they're trying to get into other. Other avenues, other things to pull in readers in different markets. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So that sounds interesting. Elizabeth Banks is great. So,
have you seen? It's like a kids' book series, but it's called Secret Hero Society, or not? That is actually really good. And Dustin Nguyen. I think he's drawn in all of them. It's a mix of like novel / comic.
Right.
Drawings illustrated throughout, and those are really good. And that's almost what I thought right away when I read that. But the book is more for like middle school age. But it's almost like the same concept of it's a school and all DC characters are going to school.
So that's like really Harry Potter, really fun, but with DC characters.
Yeah. And, like, you can have, like, Bane comes in and he's flopping around and has anger issues or something. And, like, they really kid it up, but in, like, a way that isn't, like, roll your eyes as an adult. So It's kind of like, by knowing that, and then, of course, the Elizabeth Banks part, it's kind of like, okay, like, it's... an announcement's an announcement. It's, like, it's hard to... it's hard to have a really negative reaction to just the announcement. You know, it's like,
Yeah.
okay, let's just see what it.
And if you
looks
are
like or
being
whatever.
negative, then I think there might be something wrong with you.
Yeah.
because like, you know, I just think about the new Harley Quinn animated show that we're about to have. You know, we didn't know anything about that when they first announced it, and now we're actually seeing stuff from it. So it's becoming a little bit more clear in terms of what that show's going to be like. And personally, I mean, I think it looks hilarious. I think it's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Even though it's like not the Harley Quinn that I, you know, want to.
Not my favorite interpretation.
Yeah, like which
But-
is fine because it's almost like Harley Quinn's almost like Batman at this point. There's so many different takes on her that are current and concurrent going on at once in terms of like her main comic book series and this animated series and all these 48 different Black Label books that are coming out, you know,
That is
and the movies.
seriously. I had lines like that written for my Harleen #2 review now on BatmanOnFilm.com. And then delete it just because I was kind of rambling. But that was kind of the point I was trying to get along to, is like maybe like Batman is the most adaptable, but behind him it might be Harley Quinn now because there's so many variations of her. I think kind of fitting every age and every level of maturity and stuff.
That's right. That's right. She seems pretty scalable, right, in terms of having an animated series for kids, an animated series for adults. You know, she's part of the DC Superhero Girls, and then you get like the movie version, and then you have like the
PG-13
you know.
and a rated R version.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So she's adaptable. So maybe she'll be in this DC superhero show. I don't know. But yeah, that's coming. As well as Strange Adventures, a 1-hour drama focused on characters from across the DC canon. So
that's interesting to me. And I want to know what the difference is between a show like that and the other anthology show they announced for DC Universe, which is Bizarro TV. Like, they sounded similar in concept, so I'm curious exactly what that.
I mean,
is
other than
supposed
just
to
like
be.
a way for them to start getting lesser known, a way to introduce lesser known characters in live action that's not gambling with a movie budget or something, you know?
Right.
It's not a huge commitment. It could be, which it sounds like that to me. Reading it makes me think this is an anthology series. But I mean, I
Right.
guess they could surprise us and say no, it's a whole long, whatever, like one long story. But I don't know. I'd be interested in that too. It could win me over on some, because I'm not really expanding knowledge on reading a ton of comics of like, hey, I'm going to read back issues of a Blue Beetle comic or
Right.
back issues of this character or something like that. And maybe this would change that. So
Yeah. But what is probably the most high profile thing that got announced?
the return of Ryan Reynolds as Green Lantern, the series.
Wouldn't that be
Minus the Ryan
amazing if
Reynolds.
that-
It really
Oh.
would, because I don't mind that movie. I don't think it's great. I don't necessarily even think it's good. It's entertaining. Put somebody else instead of him in there, I probably would say this movie's bad and I would never watch it. He's not what was wrong with the movie. I don't think.
Correct. No, that's
So
absolutely correct.
If he came back and did the series, that would be fantastic.
Yeah.
I don't have any scoops on this, but I highly doubt that he's coming back for the series.
Yeah.
But
So there's going to be a Green Lantern series for HBO Max, and it's a little. I'm questioning whether this really is supposed to usurp or take the place of the planned film adaptation. It almost seems like it will, almost in the same way of this new news that there's also going to be a Superman and Lois show that is probably going to be made at the CW as another thing to go along with Supergirl. We're going to get an actual Superman show, which lends credence to Warner Brothers not being so keen on having Superman on the big screen right now. So that you would think, like, if they're going full steam ahead on a Green Lantern show, that might mean there's probably not going to be much Green Lantern movie stuff happening anytime soon, but we could be wrong. And it's being developed by, Greg Berlanti. And the question is still, is this going to be part of the CW shows or its own thing? And we don't know for sure yet. My money would be on it being its own thing, but man, just the fanboy in me really wants it to just be like John Diggle Stewart Green Lantern. And because personally, cool. I would love that.
Yeah. So initially, let's see, where do I want to start? I think that it does take place of the movie because Warner Brothers got so into, hey, we just made 34 announcements of movies that are coming. 3 of them have happened. And Green Lantern, I know the initial one, and then it's almost like there was quite a while of nothing, and then there's almost like another announcement that I think I got lost in quote-unquote announcements. I feel like that was put on the back burner, and this is almost a replacement of that. Again, it's a less expensive way to pique interest from fans, I think. And I think HBO Max, they just have a bigger budget, like under that umbrella, backing of HBO backing than a CW. Yeah. Like they have more money for something that's going to require more money to look good.
Yeah.
So,
and they're already, if it gets to be like a Game of Thrones type of thing, but with Green Lantern, sign me up. Like that. Yeah. That would be amazing. Because Green Lantern is a big, super expansive world, and you could do smaller stories than you think with it. But then you could also have the bandwidth to do big, giant space stuff, and I think that would be just awesome.
To do it on a TV as a TV series, like I feel like there's no place to. HBO is like that should be a relief. I think. I feel a CW or even DC Universe, a Green Lantern series could be limited in scope a little bit or something.
Yeah,
I think
for
HBO
sure.
is kind of like, I think that would be all right. So it's pretty exciting. That's good news.
Yeah. And we're starting to see that, like, this big things have to be really big. I think to get a movie nowadays, like. Because we've got Watchmen going on right now with HBO, and people are already loving it. The Amazon's getting there. We're all trying to fill the void of some of the bigger shows going out, like Game of Thrones. Mm-hmm. Like Amazon's doing the Lord of the Rings series, and they're spending, they're sparing no expense on that show. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So everybody's trying to race to this. It's all part of this crazy like streaming race, and they're trying to make shows that are good enough to get people to want to pay for the streaming services, and it's a kind of a wild west out there with all this stuff going on. But that's good for us because we're going to get a Green Lantern show.
Yep,
and I'm here for that. I'm so here for that.
Exactly. So I feel like there's no way that they wouldn't try and get Hal Jordan, Jon Stewart, and Kyle Rayner and Guy Gardner in there at some point, right?
And Jessica Cruz. Probably just Jessica Cruz first.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, who knows? But there would be, if they're going to do it, they should just really just give us all the Green Lanterns.
Yeah.
Just do everything.
They really could just start with everything, because it's such an
it could be like an anthology series and just really just give us everybody.
That even, but and not trying to piss off Green Lantern fans, but it's like it's just not nowhere near as known of an IP.
Right, it's more of a clean slate in terms of like what they quote have to do.
Yeah, so they can do whatever they want. And if they were like, oh, we really want to, there's all these characters, like, well, then screw it. Use them all. So.
Yeah. Yeah, I think gone are the days of like, people can only know what one Green Lantern is.
Yeah.
I think like it's such a malleable property. There being multiple Green Lanterns is part of the lore. Like that, you got to overcome that hurdle anyway. So you might as well just give us all of them. You know,
we fans demand just give us everything.
Just give us everything
For $15 a month.
I want the
give
cat.
us it all.
I want Dextar. I want Dextar. I want the weird stuff. I want Atrocitus. I want Larfleeze. Like if they give us a Larfleeze, a live action Larfleeze.
True, but man, Atrocitus. That could be some sweet stuff with him.
Yeah. See, if Swamp Thing was any indication of what can be done with like practical stuff these days, like they can do some cool stuff.
Hashtag save Swamp Thing.
Yeah. But
which I don't know if it was confirmed prior to this or not. But Doom Patrol Season 2 is happening. It's going to be on HBO Max. And I saw something that said and DC Universe.
And DC Universe, yes.
Yes, because it seemed like there was some confusion there too, and that was kind of cleared up as well.
Yeah.
So that's good.
Yeah, I don't know how splitting the budgets or whatever, but yeah, it's gonna be on both.
Yeah.
Yep. And I think Titans is too. I don't know. Have they already announced a season 3 for Titans? I don't know. But I know some of the DC Universe shows are going to definitely be on both services.
Yeah. I mean, season 3 of Titans is happening because that show's so good.
That show is so good.
I
still can't believe how good it is after making me worry.
Piss poor marketing.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, it's come a long way. I think that's it on the DC TV show front, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so. I think so. I mean, it's yet another example of just embarrassment and having an embarrassment of riches of DC content on TV. It's really crazy. But there was somebody, and forgive me for not being able to cite them correctly, but their mindset with like superhero movies used to be at the beginning they always went because they needed to support the genre, and now they just pick and choose what they want to pay and go see. And I feel like that's kind of how it is with TV shows too, because I used to be that maybe
way.
Even more so. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I used to be that way with superhero TV shows of like, if there was one on, I would watch it.
You had to watch it. Like when Smallville was on, like that's all there was. And then there was Birds of Prey, and then there was just Smallville again.
Yeah. And exactly. And then all the cartoons, all 4 cartoons or whatever. And now with all the CW shows, I think, I'm not going to say how many I'm watching, but I'm not watching more than I'm watching just because there's just so many.
I'm watching all of them except for Black Lightning, because poor Black Lightning, it's one of those things where it's like, I was watching everything, and then they added Black Lightning, and then that was like, I can't add any more shows.
It's where you drew the line.
That's where I drew the line, and they made it easy because they were like, it's not connected to anything, but now they are going to connect it for the dang Crisis thing, which
spoiler,
which is like, come on, guys, like now I have to go back and watch it too. But yeah, it's hard, it's tough to keep up with it all, but the shows are good, so I'm doing it.
Well, Arrow's going to be done soon, so there you go.
That's true. But then they're going to replace Arrow with two more shows.
That's true.
One show's going to go away, and then we're going to get an Arrow spinoff and this Superman show. So
okay, I will be jumping in on the Superman.
It's like a Hydra, you cut off one head, 2 grow back, kind of thing. Yeah, no, Superman. I mean, that could be cool. It'd be cool.
I hope so. I mean, it seems like everybody loves when he's been on Supergirl.
Yeah.
And the crossover. Was it last year's crossover episode? Which I watched. So yeah.
But TV is going great. But the other thing that's going great is movies. And we keep getting these little updates about Matt Reeves' Batman movie, and it's been a while since some of this news has been out. But it's also been a while since we've had a show to talk about some of the news. So really quickly. We've had 3 kind of bigger things happen. Is that we have a Catwoman that has been cast. Yes, Zoe Kravitz is Catwoman. Yes. Selina Kyle. That's cool. I'm down with that. I think she's a good actress. I think she's going to be great alongside of Robert Pattinson. I think that's interesting. An interesting pairing.
I'll wait to comment after you announce the next casting, because my comment will apply to both.
So, which is Paul Dano is going to be the Riddler, or Edward Nygma, Nashton Nygma.
Edward Nashton. Yeah, so I can't remember, what's the Nashton Nygma deal? He debuted.
So his original name in the comics was Edward Nygma, but then I think it was either around when Crisis was, his origin got changed to have his name be Edward Nashton, and then in his psychosis and he gets, goes off the deep end, he changes his name to Edward Nygma. So they're trying to make it so not on the nose that this guy's named Enigma,
Mr. Enigma, Edward Nygma.
Enigma, yeah. But yeah, he was in the comics originally called Edward Nygma.
Okay. So
but Matt Reeves said that he was going to be Edward Nashton, so I guess that's the way that they're going in the film, at least.
Gotcha. What? His name's Edward Nygma. I'm not watching. But for the two actors, so Zoe Kravitz and Paul Dano, I haven't really seen much from either of them. But my reaction to both of them was the same, in that for some reason, even though I haven't seen much of either one's work, it was very positive and very cool. And it's weird that if I haven't seen their work, really, why would I have that reaction? But to both of them, it was just an instant, sweet. And maybe it's just because, maybe it is the fact that it's just because there's no impression in my head already. It's so they already are, just because I just, and which I'm looking at her resume right now, in which she's in 2 Fantastic Beasts movies, and she was in Mad Max Fury Road, and she was in X-Men First Class, and it's kind of okay, kind of flashes, but I don't know either. And Paul Dano, I just remember in Prisoners.
Right.
And then he was the older brother in Little Miss Sunshine. But other than those two, even so I'm kind of embarrassed that I don't know much of their work, but also it's
it could be kind of refreshing, because it's kind of another clean slate there for your reactions. And that's kind of how I was with Christian Bale. I made a point to not really watch much Christian Bale stuff when I heard he was announced as Batman, because I'm like, I just want to see him as Batman. I don't want to have to think about other stuff.
Well, weird with him is that I was like, oh, sweet, Patrick Bateman is going to be Batman. Yeah. I mean, that's not okay. But yeah, for some reason, I was like, yeah, sweet. Just because I thought he was just so good as an actor. But
yeah.
I don't know. Yeah, with these two, so Jonah Hill, I don't have a problem with Jonah Hill. I actually find him entertaining, and there's a lot of movies of his.
Well, that was the thing, is the Riddler thing was his. Well, it was kind of open for him to be Penguin or Riddler, and then when he dropped off of the project is when he bowed out. And
not even 24 hours.
Warner Brothers was ready to send the offers out to other people, and they sent it to Dano right away, and then he accepted, and that's how we got that so quickly.
Yeah, so
did we get this the same day that we had the Catwoman announcement?
What? The Jonah Hill?
The Riddler. No, yeah, the Riddler.
Oh no, Riddler's was on a Thursday, and I know this because
was it not the same day the Catwoman was announced, or was it the next day?
She was Tuesday, Monday or Tuesday, I think, because I was home sick from work, and I'd woken up in the afternoon after being zonked out on drugs all day, and I wake up and I see all this Riddler stuff, and I'm like, holy hell! But so that's what I mean of with the Jonah Hill stuff is if he'd have been, had they said Jonah Hill is the Penguin or Jonah Hill's the Riddler, it'd be like, oh, cool, I like him. But then it's almost well, now, almost not picking apart, but he's a little under a microscope. Just because, I'm thinking, oh, is it going to be 21 Jump Street Jonah Hill? Is it going to be super bad Jonah Hill? Is it going to be Wolf of Wall Street Jonah Hill?
Well, it's just like Affleck. It's oh, what kind of Affleck is going to be Batman or whatever? I mean, he could have been fine. He could have been good.
Yeah.
But now, but he's still a pretty recognizable guy. Mm-hmm. So, I'm not concerned either way. I'm excited to see Paul Dano, and I'm excited to see new interpretations of of Catwoman and Riddler, and hopefully we start getting more villains. As long as it's not Joaquin Phoenix is the Joker in this movie. Come on, I don't know. Just let that be its own thing.
Yes.
Don't do it.
Interesting with that is one of my friends just saw the movie for the first time, and he texted me, and he was just like, I don't like the age gap between Batman and Joker, but he was like, because he's general audience.
You see Batman 89?
Which makes me
an age gap there.
Which makes me laugh because he said too, he's like, well, I haven't read the comics. And I'm like, you don't have to say that. I know you haven't read the comics. Yeah, he was just saying like, he felt, so this is a general audience person. I don't like that age gap. And yet he felt like there's no way they're not going to build on this movie. I wasn't going to go into this like, well, actually, listen here, because there's probably not going to be a sequel because blah, blah, blah. I just thought, this is a dude who just, hey, that movie looks good, and watches it. Those were his instant reactions. Like, huh.
Right.
Okay. He didn't even consider the possibility. I said, how much of it do you think was real? And he goes, oh shit, I don't know. I didn't even think about that. So I sent him down this whole new whirlwind with that, and I'm like, sorry.
Yeah.
But anyways, listen to episodes 156 and 157 of the podcast.
Yeah. But the third thing that happened about the Batman, which is really quick, is that we learned that we got confirmation that yes, Michael Giacchino is going to score the movie, and I'm super excited about that. I think Giacchino is he's one of the best like modern composers we have. I love pretty much everything he does. So, but hopefully he's given the time and leeway and freedom for this Batman score to kind of make something really memorable. Like I don't want it squeezed in with 47 other scores that he does in a year. Like I want him to really kind of be able to make something really cool with this.
Yeah, and I know that a lot of us that are zoned in weren't totally surprised, but at least it's like, finally, it's official, it's confirmed, and that's a relief. And then that he said that he'd already come up with the theme. Did you come across that?
I did not see that.
Yeah, he's already written. Not that nobody's saying that it's finalized or anything, but he's already written or played
working
a
on
theme
something
and given it to Matt Reeves.
Oh,
so that's pretty cool.
I did not know that. That's awesome.
After the finalized theme comes out, it'll be cool to see like, hey, this is exactly what I had, or here's what I had, and here's what we built on it. Because I'm a nerd, and I kind of like to see that stuff.
Yeah, I was interested in that because I think you got to hear some of the like Hans Zimmer tests and Junkie XL tests for Batman's theme for BVS. You know, like they like Zimmer's way of working was he'll make these like longer just idea dumps in tracks, and then he'll pull out bits and pieces of those to make like the tracks that go like in the film. So that kind of stuff is always like super fascinating to me. So hopefully Giacchino will make something really nice and memorable for
no reason to think he won't.
Yes, exactly. So I guess we should transition into this exclusive interview we got going on here. Will you set this up?
I would love to. So Andrew Farago, the author of Batman, The Definitive History of the Dark Knight in Comics, Film, and Beyond, also known as a 25-pound dumbbell if you need to work out. This book is huge.
It's weighted with authority, as it were.
It is great. Something that you hauled around New York Comic Con for 3 days.
For 2 days in a row.
He was kind enough to accept an invitation to come on the podcast and do an interview with me to talk about his new book, which is now available to buy. And I cannot urge anybody enough to buy that book. Tweet Rick Shue, give him your address. He will buy it and send it to you. Like, already talked to Rick. He's good to go with this. It's been greenlit. But yeah, the interview, I won't tell you everything that we talk about, but we do talk about how he even came up with the idea to write the book, how long it took him to write the book, how he was able to get Kevin Conroy to write an intro to the book, and Michael Keaton and Denny O'Neil, as well as other people that he interviewed for the book, covering certain aspects of the book and everything, as well as and then I hit him up with a bunch of like rapid fire questions at the end, which were also pretty fun.
Nice.
And one is like kind of a really it's a touching story about Norm Brayfogle.
Oh, but Lauer, I got a question.
I can answer.
I listened to BOF Podcast 155, and there's the same interview with the same guy in it. How come this one is better and different?
Well, I tell you what. I'm not going to say that this one's better, but I will say that this is different. Because even though that
expansive?
More expansive. Now, that one was also done by Ryan for BatmanOnFilm.com. This one was done by Ryan for BatmanOnFilm.com. But this one is really long. Whereas Ryan in New York, he was kind of restricted to a certain time. I was not. So Andrew and I got deep.
Nice.
So it's expansive. So
Great.
And I do mention that too, up front of apologies if some questions he's had to answer many times already, including with Ryan Haas. But I tried to avoid some of your questions. The way the conversation went, some questions it kind of had to be asked, but you definitely expanded on them a little bit more too. So definitely go back to yours, because there are things you asked him that I did not, and that was a good one too. And you got to oh my gosh, shame on me for getting his name, the cover artist. But you interviewed him too.
John
he was
Guido.
there. Yeah, so you got to hear.
Yes.
So it's definitely worth listening to both. Don't skimp on that.
That's true. Yeah. So sorry this episode's long already, but it's going to be even longer and greater once you hear this interview.
I'm not sorry.
Well, I tell you what, that book is great, and it's one of those things. It's like we can spend hours talking about the Batman content that is just coming out, like on a regular basis. Like this is all stuff that's just coming soon, or it comes out today and comes out like around the. I mean, it's just crazy.
When you and I said we'll do a really quick intro into the, and look
We're
how
just
far
two
we
people.
are.
Yeah,
and look what happens. Like it's just because there's just always so much, and because
there's
we like
always
it.
so much. Yeah. You can't really get enough Batman, and it won't stop, which I'm happy about.
Mm-hmm.
So definitely go buy that book. It is awesome. It is this gigantic, really gigantic book, and it's exhaustive. But if that's up your alley in terms of something that covers every era of Batman, definitely get it. And if I don't convince you with that, I'm sure the interview you're about to hear will. So without ado, let's transition to that interview.
And now joining me is Andrew Farago, the author of Batman, The Definitive History of the Dark Knight in Comics, Film, and Beyond. Andrew, thanks for joining me.
Thanks for having me. Happy to be here.
Yeah, so I once thought that I would always cite you as the author of the greatest Ninja Turtles book, but then once this got announced, now it's Andrew Farago, the author of the greatest Batman book in history. So to start us off, like before we get to the book, let's hear a little bit about you. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Okay. I was born and raised in Ohio. Made my way out to California about 20 years ago, and almost the whole time I've been here, I've been working for the Cartoon Art Museum located in San Francisco. So mostly as the museum's curator, putting together exhibitions, working on programs with artists, doing a lot of comics and cartoon and animation history books and projects. So it's all cartoons with me all the time.
So when would you say that your Bat fandom began?
You know, I've got to say, I can't remember a time that I was not a Batman fan. I've got drawings that I did when I was 4 years old, so I know at least going that far back, I was watching the Adam West's Batman in syndication. I was watching Super Friends. I had my Mego Batman and Robin. I had, there are photos of me in Batman pajamas at age 4. So this, I tell people this research on this book goes back about 40 years for me. So yeah, pretty long time.
I think you're in good company of a lot of us Batman fans. It's like, no, actually, we don't remember a time that we didn't idolize Batman. Whether it was like you, a lot of us watching the Adam West series, always saying rush home from school. It seems like it didn't matter at what decade it was. Everybody ended up rushing home from school to watch the Adam West series.
Yeah, I've got friends, and including some of the people I interviewed, who are 20 or 40 years older than I am, who, also can't remember a time that they weren't Batman fans. Denny O'Neil was born May 1939, when the month Batman first hit the newsstands, and he was aware of that character from very early on. So that's most of us. Most of us have never, known a time when we didn't know Batman.
So taking that and looking through all the books that you've written, you've been a fan of pop culture your whole life, it seems, and spanning amongst a couple of decades. What sparked the idea for the Batman book?
Okay, I'd worked with the editor, my editor Chris Prince, pretty recently on a book called Totally Awesome: Greatest Cartoons of the '80s, Greatest Television Cartoons of the '80s. We previously worked together on the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles book that you mentioned, and thanks for all the the glowing praise for that.
Of course.
And so Chris called me last summer. He called me up and he said, "Yeah, let's do another book." And he actually offered me the choice between Batman and Fraggle Rock. And it's like I love Jim Henson. I love all of his work, and I was really intrigued by the prospect of doing a Fraggle Rock book. But I said, I really, I almost talked myself out of it because of how big this project was going to be. Like 80 years of Batman, comics, film, everything else. And I was weighing the pros and cons. I said, if I do Fraggle Rock, it's just the show. It's just, a few comic books and an animated series, and that's it. But I said, yeah, let's do Batman, and and that launched us on this big crazy adventure.
So last summer, it wasn't so much you pitching the idea; it was coming to you and kind of almost pitching the idea to you.
Yeah, well, Chris said, let's do Batman, but let's do the total history. Let's do the comics. Let's do the newspaper comics. Let's do the 1940s serials. Let's do the Batmania in the 60s and the 80s, 1989 movie, all of it. And it was kind of like he'd read my mind, because I'd been thinking I would love to write something about the 1960s Batman TV show. I would love to write something about Super Friends, and this really checked a lot of boxes for me. So he put the wheels in motion. I wrote a detailed pitch of these are the topics we'd have to cover. These are the people we'd have to interview. This is the work that would have to go into it. These are the resources and assets we'd need. And, we made it happen. And I should mention, I had a co-writer, who came in, as we were wrapping the book up, and she was a lifesaver. Gina McIntyre, is the reason this book came in on time, and she really added so much to the book with her, the quality of her writing, her connections to Hollywood. She came in and did some fantastic work on the live action chapters to really take this book to the next level.
Wow. So the ideas proposed last summer, was it intimidating to think, yes, I'll get this completed for his 80th anniversary?
It was, and I had. It's one of the reasons that I, was able to psych myself into it, is that, I'm somebody who had already, I'd seen every episode of Batman the Animated Series 3 times. I'd seen every episode of the Adam West TV show. I had watched all the movies. I'd read just about every comic from 1989 onward, and then that was buying them off the rack. And of course, I was reading reprints. I was reading trade paperbacks. I was so unlike some of the other books I've written, I was able to hit the ground running because I didn't have to educate myself on, who are the top Batman artists of the 1970s? What are the big events that happened in the comic books in the 1980s? What are the top episodes of Batman the Animated Series? So I knew all that material really well going into the project. And what I had to do at that point was make my wish list for who do I need to interview. And I reached out to, again, about 150 people for all the interviews that I did, with rare exceptions. I'd say I got a good 95% of the people that I wanted to interview. I got to either sit down and have a long phone call with them or trade emails with them. And, that for me is what really, really put this book over the top.
Yeah. So that's something I was wondering too. Did you know, or how did you figure out maybe a way that you did a previous book and the way you did that, what would carry over and what needs to be done differently or would be new to you when it's approaching this book?
Okay, yeah, experience helps a lot. When I wrote the Ninja Turtles book, that was 5 years earlier, and a lot of that I was learning as I went. So I didn't know, I didn't know if I wanted to talk to a major Hollywood director or screenwriter or actor. I did that by kind of stumbling around, asking friends, who knows this guy, who can help me reach these people. And, and that came out, that worked out fine in the end. And, with Batman, because it was such a big project and on such a tight timetable, we had to strategize a little bit better. So my publisher, with Insight Editions, they were incredibly helpful in reaching out to people like voice actors like Diedrich Bader and Kevin Conroy, and some of the producers and directors and actors that I got to talk to while writing this book. So I had much more of a I had a much better strategy this time around. I had better resources. I had, again, the experience guiding me. So I knew if I'm having trouble reaching an artist or a writer, this is the path I have to take. This is the direction I have to take with it. Mm-hmm. And again, with rare exceptions, there were some people where, because of their comic book production schedules, or if they were, animators or actors. Some people just for some reason or another, our schedules didn't quite match up. But over the course of about 4 months, I interviewed nearly everybody that I could have asked for.
Wow. So, as you just kind of mentioned a few of your interviews and kind of how wide that range was as far as like dipping into animation and the movies, how were you able to kind of narrow your focus and be able to break up the book and plan out how to break down chapters and what you wanted to cover? Because I kind of feel like it's almost you're given a blank slate and then it's like, all right, just go to work, to where there's just so many routes you can take. How do you focus and break that down?
Well, this is it's a 400-page book. If my editor hadn't reined me in, it might have been a 600-page book. So
we would have bought it.
Yeah, I'm glad he was able to. He knows his Batman history too, and he was able to look at this and say, say things like, "You're spending a little too much time on." I know you love. I know you love this story. I know you love this crossover. I know this movie was important to you, but you're spending a little bit too much time on this and not enough time on this. And he was able to keep me focused. So we had to strike that balance of when I'm writing about the 1943 and 1949 Batman movie serials. There was not a lot written about them. There was not a lot of, other than the films themselves, there was not a lot of research material available. The principal actors and producers and directors, writers, everybody involved with that, they weren't around. So we had to figure out how can we cover this particular subject in depth with limited resources here, and make sure that we spend adequate time talking about that and talking about the 1943 Batman newspaper comic, and spending a little less time on we didn't have to break down the 1950s year by year when Batman had a lot of reprints and was doing fairly repetitive stories of fighting aliens and fighting monsters and fighting the same bizarre gangsters over and over again. How do we make sure this isn't how do we make sure we get enough depth and detail in the Super Friends chapter to keep that interesting for people like me who grew up on it, and people younger than me who missed seeing that on television and might not have the same affinity for it that I do. So, there's a lot of back and forth with my editor, and we figured out we had to strike that balance between what does the general public, casual Bat fan want to see. But for me, as a historian, as a lifelong Batman fan, someone who knows this subject so well, I had to make sure this is the sort of book that I'd be proud to have my name on, and that most importantly, the kind of book I would buy even if I had to do with it. So that's always important to me. I want to make sure a casual fan can enjoy this, but the diehards are going to say, like, yes, that's that makes sense, and it's cool that you talked to Neil Adams about this story, and it's great that you got this anecdote from Denny O'Neil in there, and getting the inside track from Steve Englehart. I wanted to leave no Batstone unturned.
So you talking about the serials, so it made me think that I'm not surprised that there isn't a lot of written material on it. So that would definitely be a challenge. What were some other challenges and obstacles that you didn't see coming for this book?
Oh yeah, there were things like that. In some cases, there just wasn't a lot written on any particular subject at the time, and in many cases, I had to consult historians, people like Brian Cronin and Mark Catavaz and other people who'd written at length on Batman, and rely on them to fill in the gaps. People like Mark Tyler Nobleman, who was largely responsible for getting Bill Finger properly credited as the co-creator of Batman. Historians like Jens Robinson, the son of Jerry Robinson, Mark Evanier, who's another font of comics and cartoon history, and was a Batman fan going way back. So there were a lot of people like that who thankfully were incredibly generous with their time. Peter Sanderson's another one. People who were able to, if they didn't know the history, they were able to provide their critical assessment of some of these older stories. And, some people had firsthand accounts of meeting Bob Kane and Bill Finger. So in some cases, people were no longer with us. So I had to rely on these secondhand stories and memories from people. I spoke with Athena Finger, the granddaughter of Bill Finger. So yeah, it was just wonderful getting stories from people like that. I knew Jerry Robinson a little bit. Through the National Cartoonist Society, and again through my day job at the Cartoon Art Museum. And so there were people like that whose stories I wanted to make sure we told, that we got them out there, and really wanted to make sure that everybody possible got the credit that they deserved in this book. And this is, I think this may be the first DC authorized publication that really formally history book anyway that really formally recognizes Bill Finger as the co-creator of Batman. So we get into that. We get into his story. We talk about his contract with Bob Kane, and a little bit into the we give Bob Kane a fair shake too, I would say. We talk about where he was coming from, what the comic strip world was like at the time, what the publishing world was like at the time, and why he behaved the way he did with the as far as not crediting Bill Finger during his lifetime. So I think it's a really fair assessment of Kane and Finger and their working relationship. So there's so much history. Like I said, I could have written another 50 or 100 pages on that if my editor had just said, let's aim for the 85th anniversary and just keep going on this.
So what restrictions would it be on your editor's side? Is there, we can't exceed a certain page count, or was it just, I think we can make some cuts here and here and here to just for a smoother reading experience? Or what would the decision be on their end to not let you write those extra 50 or 100 pages?
Well, it worked out. It worked out really well. I think we, I think we always had that 400-page count in mind, especially as things were coming together. That's, you did the math, 80 years, 400 pages. Yeah. And, some years for Batman were busier than others. So I obviously spent a lot of time at the beginning talking about, the characters that influenced Finger and Kane and the publishing industry at the time. And again, my first draft probably had, was probably 3 times as long, going into the history of comic book publishing and the Golden Age and national publications at the time. But my editor, what was one of his talents was making sure that I stayed on point. So he said, if this doesn't relate directly to Batman, if this doesn't relate to this story, there are books out there about the Golden Age of comics and about publishing at the time and about the people who built DC Comics into what it is. And so let's keep the focus on Batman. And even if I started veering off and going into Robin's history or Nightwing's history, or you're spending a little too much time on Man Bat, he would chime in and say, like, let's not forget whose name is on the cover, who we're supposed to be talking about. And and it's a stronger book for that. So we I'd say there was not really there wasn't anything left out that I really anything that I really wanted to have in there that we couldn't cover. And he said, he mentioned more than once, he said, it sounds like you're trying to write a Robin book. Let's talk about that later. And he was right. So there might be enough material out there to do a sidekick edition of the book later on.
So from the initial inception of the idea of you creating this book, did you ever imagine that you would get Michael Keaton, Denny O'Neil, and Kevin Conroy to write introductions and forwards to this book?
I really didn't. I had a wish list. We had we had some comics celebrities, and we had some we had some names from Hollywood that we're kicking around, and we went back and forth on a few, and I'll mention Paul Dini wrote the introduction to The Art of Harley Quinn, my previous DC Comics history book. So we didn't want to repeat ourselves and go back to him on this one. So we said, well, who best represents the animated version of Batman that we all know and love? And we said, how about, we agreed Kevin Conroy would be terrific for that. And this may be the first, this may be the first introduction that he's written for a book. So I think he was honored to be asked. I was beyond honored to have him agree to that, because he's just, the definitive Batman. And he was the first one to sign on as far as those supplemental materials. And at that point we said, well, who represents Batman, the comic book character? And to me, the name that jumped out more than any other was Denny O'Neil, who, from the 70s through the year 2000, had a hand in Batman. So as one of the definitive writers, as one of the people who steered Batman into the 70s and '80s, as the editor of The Dark Knight Returns, as the editor of the Batman line throughout, A Death in the Family and Nightfall and No Man's Land. That one was, again, that's a no-brainer. And again, I was thrilled that Denny agreed to write the preface to the book. And then came our long shot. We said, okay, we've got comics, we've got animation, and now we got movies, and movies and live action. And we talked about, well, there's Christopher Nolan, there's Christian Bale, there's Tim Burton, and we went back and forth, and we said, let's shoot for the moon here. Let's go for, let's go all out. So my editor called Michael Keaton's reps, and we thought that was kind of a long shot. He hasn't, he hasn't done a lot of Batman related things since he stepped out of the cape and cowl after Batman Returns.
So I think that's one thing, how you said that, in a way, your people called his people, but what's a process like that of getting a hold of somebody? Because I feel like a lot of people don't know, it's not just a simple, I didn't just pick up my phone and call you and say, hey, Andrew, you want to chat? Like there's, there is a line in trying to track down and trying to not seem like, hey, I'm just this, I'm a weirdo, I just want to talk. It's like, no, this is actually for a purpose. And in your case, a huge book. So what's that like?
Okay. Yeah. So this is the benefit of working with, a well-known and respected publisher. So Insight Editions, they had everything in place. They were able to, write a very professional letter, introducing ourselves to Michael Keaton, and we had, I should mention, we had reached, they were aware that the book was coming together because we had reached out to them about the prospect of me interviewing him for the book. But again, I mentioned earlier, shooting schedules and Hollywood type stuff. That's the problem with a project like this, is you have people who have shooting schedules and they've got production schedules that sometimes have them on the other side of the world. Sometimes they're doing very demanding roles. Sometimes, sometimes they're not. Sometimes they're enjoying some rare downtime between projects, and really, want to go off the grid for a while. So it was, I was bummed out that we weren't able to make an interview with Michael Keaton happen, but, it sounded like he was interested in the book. He was glad it was happening. He was, curious about it, but his schedule didn't work out. And then as we were wrapping things up, as that publication date was barreling down on us, we said, again, and for me, who was 13 the summer that first Batman movie came out, I said, yeah, we absolutely want to do it. I'll call him. I will sing him songs. I will draw fan art. I will. I'll stand on his lawn with a boombox, whatever we do to convince him.
Did you have to do any of that?
About it. It's. I would love to see the letter that my editor actually sent to him, because whatever it was, it convinced him, to write a really wonderful forward to the book, talking about his experience as Batman, and and it was perfect. It was the the icing on the cake.
Mm-hmm. So looking here, I have the book open now, and just as far as the chapter titles, how did you go about? Because if I'm not wrong, it was a similar way of titling the chapters in your Ninja Turtles book. That's my main source of reference. I love that book. So like in this one of even, Biff Bam Pow is a chapter. Meanwhile, at the Hall of Justice is a chapter, Identity Crisis, and then where does he get those wonderful toys? And to where some of us readers and some of us hardcore fans will read the title and be like, I know what this chapter is about.
Yeah, that was, I think I had that in mind from the beginning. I went with, my very first draft. I think I was going with, kind of by the numbers, maybe a little bit dry, chapter titles. And then as I was working through it, I said, well, no, let's have fun with this. Let's use some quotes. Let's use some shout outs. Let's use, let's use some fun terms and phrases that, that the real Batman fans are going to get. And, I think it adds a really fun element to that. And, even all the way to doing Legends of the Dark Knight is one of the, where did I use that? Yeah, I use that very early on for my own introduction, my own little one-page introduction, setting the stage for the book. And so I put fun little call outs to favorite shows and stories and movies, and just that one little, and that's one of many things that I love about this book was just all the fun little touches, all the extra. I felt we really went the extra mile for the dedicated Bat fans out there.
Oh, definitely. The one that did throw me for a loop is Intimidation Games, because I think, if I'm not mistaken, correct me if I'm wrong, please, but wasn't that a rumored title for Batman Begins? A rumored working title?
Yes, so that is, and that dates at least back to, George Lucas working on Star Wars and calling it the Blue Harvest. Where every once in a while someone is working on a film that just has kind of off the charts hype and anticipation and excitement surrounding it, and directors and producers to throw people off the track, throw people off the set to make sure that people aren't sneaking onto the set and taking photos or snagging props, whatever might go on. Many times they'll come up with some alternate production name that sounds, and you would see a movie called Intimidation Games, but you wouldn't be standing in line and camping out for it the way you would for the first Batman movie in about a decade. And so we had some fun titles in there. I think Batman Unchained may be in there as well. That was a working title for a Batman movie that didn't happen.
So by saying the Intimidation Games, was that kind of playing toward the Arkham chapter, but also alluding to, or did you just like that title for the chapter?
That one, my editor Chris Prince suggested it, and he said, we got, it's got games in the title. It's a fun little, it's a fun little Easter egg that, people who know will get a chuckle out of.
So since this is Batman on film, we've got to talk about Batman on film. And where does he get those wonderful toys? I love the full chapter on Batman 89. It was over 30 pages, and some of it, sure, maybe we've been able to find somewhere before, but there's a lot that I didn't know. What was that like to, I guess, condense now, since it's turned 30 years of information down into 30 pages?
Yeah, I mean, I loved working on that chapter. As I was working on that, I was, and that's that again. I should mention Gina McIntyre stepped in and did a lot on that chapter as well. She had some resources and connections, and Tim Burton stepped up and let us access his archives and put some previously unseen materials in here, which was just a blast. But yeah, that summer when I was 13, I should mention, leading up to that, the hype for the Batman movie was just off the charts. It was, I'd say everything from Christmas 1988 all the way through the movie's release in June of 1989. It was just a steady build of, you'd see a grainy set photo in a tabloid, and you'd hear rumors on the playground, like in the pre-internet era. You'd see toys released like a few at a time, or products or merchandise. So it was a slow, steady, ever intensifying build up to the release of that movie.
Do you think that hype? Sorry, I was gonna say, do you think that hype for The Dark Knight matched the Batman '89, or did it come close?
It probably came close, but the '89 movie, we hadn't seen that take on Batman before on film, and I remember, one of my prized possessions that summer was the Topps official souvenir magazine, with all the photos and all the little interviews and stories that went into that magazine. And I bought the Topps trading cards that summer. I bought the movie adaptation.
Yes.
The Many Deaths of the Batman and Blind Justice and all the Batman comics that were coming out that summer. And I mean, it was off the charts. People, everybody in America, it seemed, had that black T-shirt with the yellow bat symbol on it. Not everybody, but a lot of people went all out and got the bat symbol shaved into their hair that summer. And Christmas '89, it was, I got so much Batman stuff that year. I got the videotape the day that it came out. There's just, it was just so pervasive. It was just everywhere. The Batman movie hype, the merchandising, the excitement, every TV special, every every bit of news coverage about the movie and about the lines around the block to see it, every article on comic shops and on what was going on in the Batman comic books at the time. It's hard to replicate that. And again, getting to revisit that summer and getting to cover that movie in depth, that was just such a treat. And I should mention, I got to meet for the first time here in San Francisco, Sam Hamm, who wrote the screenplay for that movie.
Oh yeah.
One of the few interviews that I got to conduct in person, because he lives in the area, so he was able to meet me at the Cartoon Art Museum. I sat down with him and my tape recorder for about an hour and just kind of geeked out. Because I saw his name on the movie posters that summer, and I read the terrific 3-part Batman story he wrote for his 50th anniversary, Blind Justice, illustrated by Dennis Cohen, and it was just so much fun hearing his firsthand stories about how he lobbied to work on this movie and how he convinced Tim Burton he was the right guy for the job, and the story sessions he had with Tim Burton. And again, that was such a, and I'll say that about literally every chapter in that book, that it was just so much fun to write about that.
So with that chapter of Batman 89, I really like all of the concept art, because I really like seeing that, especially when it comes to Batman, of the initial idea and then what it became. And so there's definitely pictures of their Gotham, and then this great 2-page spread that you have of all the ideas for the balloons at the end, which is really fun and really cool to see. But I think my favorite piece, well, the whole book has inserts, which you did in the Ninja Turtles book that I thought was awesome, and that might be my favorite part of the book, is all these inserted pieces of materials. Like from the 60s show, you have, is it like the fan card? You have a Batman mask, but then you have something I didn't even know existed. It was a Bob Kane proposal for the 89 movie, but that was done 3 years before the movie. Like, how did you stumble across this?
Again, boots on the ground. I had my my editor, and again, I regret that I didn't have the time to raid the Warner Brothers vault myself, because I was busy writing this book. But my editor was able to actually, spend a day in Southern California, meeting with Warner Brothers, going through their archives, finding, picking out. He took photos. He called me. He said, there's a lot of cool material here. There's a lot of stuff that we'll want for the movie chapters. And he said, they've got the complete Bob Kane treatment that he wrote, when he heard this Batman movie, what ended up being the 1989 Batman movie, when that was going into production. So he wrote a letter emphasizing that he wanted this to be, that he thought it should be a very serious, moody, mysterious Batman movie. And, and he wanted to get in on it. So he wrote his own treatment for the film, and it's an amazing document, and it's so cool that we that Chris Prince unearthed it. We talked about it. He got permission to run it in its entirety. So that's going to be a fun thing for collectors and readers and fans to read through.
Yeah, I really like it, how he'd mentions many times over in it of he wants to stray from the campy, and then reading his story, some of it reads actually kind of campy. But like, nonetheless, I think it read to me as if, in which I'm not going to say what happens in it, but it read to me, I could visualize it and almost being like a really fun comic book.
Oh, definitely. And it's funny, like when you look back at the 1989 movie, as serious as it was supposed to be, as dark and serious as we all thought it was at the time. If you look back at it now, there's a sense of humor about it. That's true of any number of Tim Burton projects, that there's a there's fun there. There's some humor behind it. And it's a different style of humor from the 60s TV show, again, which I absolutely love. And that's why Batman has the staying power that he does, that you've got, I don't think, if you have Adam West and Michael Keaton and Christian Bale and Kevin Conroy all next to each other, I don't think any one of them, that only one of them is the one true Batman. And I say that of the comic books too. If you have the more recent Scott Snyder, Greg Capullo Batman, and classic Denny O'Neil, Neil Adams Batman, and the Steve Englehart, Marshall Rogers Batman, and the Carmine Infantino, Bill Finger Batman, and the Dick Sprang Batman. If you put them all next to each other, I think they are all. I think they're all valid. I think they're all Batman. So I'm really not. I'm not a guy that ever takes sides on that debate. I know some people latch onto one or the other, and I know there are Zack Snyder fans who will put down the Tim Burton movies, and there are Tim Burton fans who love Batman Returns, but will put down the first Batman, and there are people who, there's some Joel Schumacher diehards out there too. But yeah, they're all each and every one of them. They're all Batman.
Yeah, I think your book kind of illustrates that perfectly, of over 80 years of the different incarnations, and I don't know of another superhero that can do that can kind of jump genres as much as Batman has, and yet almost every single one is like, yeah, that works there. Yeah, that works there. Yeah, that works there.
Yeah, he's endlessly adaptable. The origin story, we've seen it so many times, and it requires you don't have to change that origin story very much at all from the first time we saw it back in late 1939, when it was updated again around 1950, and then when we saw flashbacks to it in the 70s, and when Frank Miller did his iconic take on it in The Dark Knight Returns, and all the times we've seen it in the movies and on TV. That story that's endlessly adaptable, and then the character just someone who is driven by justice and doing what's right, and you can change the costume a little bit, you can change the equipment and the crime fighting tools, but at the core, that's just such a solid concept that you can literally do anything with it.
And so while there's a lot of information for the 89 Batman, you covered the rest of the 90s Batman movies in another chapter, and I really appreciated that we had so much information also covering Batman Returns, Batman Forever, Batman and Robin, because I just don't feel like there's as much of that out there. Was that a struggle to get information there too from those movies?
Yeah, that was, again, those were a lot of fun. I talked to Tom Duffield, who worked with Bo Welch on the set design and having to do all the. Tom had to figure out a lot of just crazy practical effects and sets and things for Batman Returns. Like, how do you build, this massive, scary penguin enclosure, and how do you transform a soundstage into Gotham City at wintertime, and how do you, this was amazing. He said they had to, we take a lot for granted with computer effects nowadays, but that was in its infancy in the 90s. So to get people just an effect as simple as seeing the breath of people, to get a sense that this was Gotham City in December, they had to crank the air conditioning up to the max and lock the set and bring in generators and do all this work to lower the temperature enough for that. And they said it was an incredibly hot summer in LA while they were filming it. So every time someone opened the doors, it undid all their work, and they had to seal everything up and start all over again. And they had to build a watertight, which he said was not the most pleasant thing, but they had to build this watertight, kind of Arctic lair for the Penguin, and so he had amazing stories. He talked about a McDonald's commercial that they filmed on the set, and what kind of logistical issues go into that, and you know, and I had amazing phone conversations with Joel Schumacher and Akiva Goldsman, and both of them were. You know, both of them were apologetic for their Batman movies, but you know, at the same time, they absolutely had a blast working on them. They had such wonderful stories. They, you know, they were working with restrictions and collaborators and you know. Studio guidelines and toy company guidelines and all kinds of things that you know, ultimately affected the movies that they were able to produce and put on the screen. But you know, they have their love for the character and for DC Comics and all things Batman really came through when I was talking to them.
Moving on to the Dark Knight trilogy. Were you able to speak with many of the crew from that series?
Yeah, we did an interview with Christopher Nolan. I did a brief email interview with him, and I believe Gina McIntyre got to also have a little phone time with him. And I had a great call with David Goyer, so I got to go over. You know, script by script with him on that trilogy. And yeah, I think we really, we covered a lot of bases on that one. It was, those are such remarkable movies, and there's been a wealth of material already written and produced on them, so we had to come up with our own take on it. So we wanted to make sure that we weren't, you know, I think each individual movie has had its own art book and its own script book published and all this other information out there. So we really, we did some digging. We approached our interviews from different angles to make sure we came up with a new spin on it. And again, Christopher Nolan and Warner Brothers were so generous and so helpful with making sure that we had the resources and everything we'd need to do, you know, really, you know, real knockout chapters on that material.
I'll say I don't think that the shock could ever settle in on me that, yeah, I'll do this Batman book, and then, oh my gosh, I got these people. I'm getting to talk to these people. Oh, now I get to talk to these people. Now I get to email with Christopher Nolan. Now I get to talk to David Goyer. I mean, how unreal is that?
And you know, it was one thing after another like that. I mentioned Kevin Conroy and Diedrich Bader, and they're incredible. They both absolutely loved their tenures as Batman, and you know, I had to work over my I had to work up the nerve to call them and talk to them, but
and sound professional and not be like, hi.
And but the you know, the big two as far as that goes, for me, had to be Julie Newmar and Mark Hamill. So
oh my gosh.
Those calls, like I stared at the phone number, I stared at the emails, like okay, they're inviting me to talk to them on the phone, and you know, let's do it. I had to really psych myself up for it. But you know, both of them were just so so incredibly nice, so generous, so fun, and it was it was just amazing talking to each of them.
I think that's really great and refreshing to hear too, is work that's so appreciated by fans. in knowingly that they've probably had to answer the same questions over and over for years, and yet it still just seems like they love the work they put into it. They're very gracious about, yeah, sure, let's talk, and open about their experiences. It's just really refreshing to hear that, like, you got to talk to these people you were fans of, and it was a great experience. It wasn't a nightmare. It was like, nope, they're as nice and cool as you'd expect them to be.
Yeah, Julie was wonderful. She had so many great stories about being on the set and about, very fond memories of her castmates and the crew that worked on that show. And that was, her interview really put the 60s Batman show, Batman chapter over the top. And Mark Hamill is, you're not going to find a bigger comics and animation fan than him. I mean, we talked about his role as the Joker, obviously, and we talked about his, how he insisted to his agent that he get an audition for Batman the Animated Series. He said, even if I'm just like henchman number one in one scene, that I want to be a part of this show. And we talked comics, we talked animation, we talked about Peanuts and Looney Tunes and classic movies. And he, again, such a terrific, such a generous guy. And I'm still in disbelief that that I got to talk to him, and that that my books are on his shelf at home. That's just incredible.
Oh, that's really cool. So now the pick your favorite child portion of this. Do you have a favorite chapter of the book?
I was as I was writing any given chapter and going back and forth with my editor on it, I'm sure I had least favorite chapters, and I had nightmare chapters and things. We had some that we had to revisit 2 or 3 times because they were not, they needed a little extra work to get up to the level of the other chapters. Maybe I didn't have, maybe I was an interview short, or we didn't quite have enough context, or we had too much information and we had to pare it down to make one chapter comparable to the next. But yeah, I mean, era by era, I had a lot of fun, digging in deep to the Golden Age and to the 50s and to some of the lesser known periods of Batman's history, like that, the period right before the TV show came along, and actually a little bit prior to the New Look era of Batman. Actually writing about the New Look era was a lot of fun. And to answer your question, I can flip open the book to pretty much any page and have a fun time checking it out.
Great. So, what, after all of this research, is there anything off the top of your head that was the most fascinating bit of information that you didn't know beforehand? That's
a long list, but I'll say one of the things that does come to mind. I mentioned Joel Schumacher earlier. Mm-hmm. So what people kind of forget about his Batman, his second Batman movie, Batman and Robin, is that it was financially successful. It wasn't a blockbuster in the sense that the others were, but it did well at the box office. It sold, I don't know how many hundreds of millions of dollars worth of toys and Happy Meals and things and shirts and coloring books. You know, how much merchandise it moved worldwide, but you know, it wasn't the big, you know, it wasn't the financial failure or disaster that people kind of in looking back kind of think it was. And he was actually, you know, he was actually in discussions to do a fifth Batman movie, and he had actually gone so far as to recruit Nick Cage, Scarecrow, and they were in talks with Madonna as Harley Quinn. She would have been the first live action Harley Quinn. And that would have been a movie called Batman Unchained, but you know, I think the negative publicity and the overall negative reactions to the film, the negative reviews, I think you know, kind of torpedoed that. But it's a pretty fascinating what if, and we look at a few things like that a few times where you know, Batman almost took a comedic turn in the 80s. So we you know, we had the possibility of a Bill Murray as Batman, Eddie Murphy as Robin movie. We had you know, we had so many interesting near misses. We had Darren Aronofsky planning to do Batman Year One. So there's a lot of interesting trivia like that in the book. So it's exciting to see what did happen. It's also exciting to look at what almost could have happened.
If a multiverse was real, all of these things happened in one of these Earths. Earth 2 has Bill Murray Batman. Earth 3 has Nicolas Cage Scarecrow. So with this book and with this project, did you accomplish everything that you wanted to?
You know, I think I did. I think if you know, if we'd had another 6 months working on it, you know, we might have, you know, we would have gotten a few more interviews in there that we'd wanted. We might have unearthed a little bit more artwork, but you know, nobody gets to do that on a book like this. Nobody gets to, you know, have absolute control over space and time. And again, I was coordinating 150 interviews over a very short period of time. So you know, there will be little things that I'll look at where I'll say, oh, I wish you know, I wish his shooting schedule had been different, or you know, that I'd had an extra 20 minutes with this guy on the phone, or that we'd you know, that we'd managed to get this insert that we didn't quite figure out. But you know, I think any writer who tells you that they don't think like that when they look at a book like this, you know, isn't being completely honest. So I think, you know, the design team and my editor, my co-writer, you know, we had so many amazing behind the scenes people at DC and Warner Brothers working on this that yeah, I think I'm really proud of it. I'm really thrilled with how it turned out. And you know, even those little nagging details that hopefully I'm going to be the only one that notices. You know, I'm really incredibly happy with how it turned out.
So how has making this book affected your fandom for the character?
Oh, that's a great question. You know, I think the main thing is I now know that you know, I'm never allowed to lose at Batman trivia ever. If I and the same thing happened to me after the Ninja Turtles book came out. People will try to stump me. People are gonna come up to me like, who inked Batman 427? And you gotta have that answer ready to go right then. And Mike DiCarlo is the answer to that, by the way. But,
I was getting ready to ask you if you knew.
Yeah. I think it gave me a new and deeper appreciation for, a few things. Like, I had to go back and watch every Batman movie from a different perspective. I had to spend some more time with shows like The Batman and Beware the Batman that I hadn't spent as much time with before. I had to go back and read some of the forgotten and lesser known eras of the Batman comic books, and I've got a deeper appreciation for the character and just what makes him so special and so enduring. And I'm grateful for the experience. I don't know if that means I am going to be set to dive back in for the 90th anniversary. If my phone rings and we want to do an update, I'll say even in the few months since we wrapped up on this, I think Detective Comics number 1000 is kind of the capper to this. That's about where our history had to end because we had to put a stop on it somewhere. But even in the months since then, we've had all this talk about the forthcoming Batman movie and the casting announcement of Robert Pattinson and Zoe Kravitz being announced just the other day as Catwoman, and all the things that are coming up in the comics and with coming to DC Comics and overall, and coming to Batman specifically in the next year or so. There are going to be some big surprises there. So even just updating this book 5 years from now, I'm already looking at how big a task that.
Yeah.
But we'll see. Hopefully, there's at this point in his history, I think this is the definitive look at the character.
And I can't believe I haven't asked you about this yet. The cover. Was any part of the cover your idea, or were you just surprised with this is what we're going for, or how did that come about? Because this is an awesome cover.
Yeah, this is John Guido, and he's a terrific illustrator. I met him for the first time a couple weeks ago at New York Comic Con, and I had seen John's work before, but my editor is really keen on working with him, and I wish I could take credit for it, but my editor picked John. He just told me, he said, I've got a great cover artist in mind. I was expecting, okay, well, he's probably going to go for maybe he'll find a comic book artist that I'm familiar with. Maybe we'll tweak an existing cover or something. But he'd worked with John before. He reached out to him and basically just gave him instructions like, we know Batman, the comic book character. We know Batman, the animated character. We know Batman, the movie star. Let's do not a Where's Waldo, but let's do a mashup. Let's put all these together, incorporate all these elements from your favorite takes on Batman, make sure we get the new guys like the Lego Batman in there. Make sure we get the classic Batman the Animated Series in there. There's a reference to The Dark Knight Returns. There's a reference to the 60s show. I love the cover. I was floored when that hit my inbox, and I'm thrilled with it. John's an amazing artist, and deserves every bit of the accolades he's getting for this cover.
Oh, for sure. Now, I'd like to do a quick rapid fire. Don't even think twice. Just the first thing that pops into your head. Favorite live-action Batman movie?
Ooh, let's go 1989 Batman.
Favorite live-action Batman?
Adam West.
Favorite live-action villain?
That for me is a toss-up between Julie Newmar's Catwoman and Frank Gorshin's Riddler, who is just incredible.
Very nice. How about Batman animated movie?
Mask of the Phantasm is just terrific. That's the Batman the animated series team, kind of at their peak. So love that movie.
It's perfect. Favorite TV series? This can be animated or the 60s or whatever.
That one at any moment it goes back and forth from the 60s TV live action show and Batman the Animated Series, and that's again such a toss up. That one changes day to day.
How about a favorite Batman comic book story? Could be a single issue, could be a whole graphic novel.
Okay, I'll mention. I communicated this to him at one point. But my favorite Batman single issue of the 1990s was from a series called Batman: Shadow of the Bat. So the 13th issue of that is a story called The Nobody, written by Alan Grant, drawn by Norm Brayfogle. And I've actually got a piece of art, a page of original art from that story. But it's just a great one-shot, really touching, introspective Batman story, that gets at the heart of why, with all his millions of dollars and with the life that he has, why does Bruce Wayne do what he does? Why does he go out and risk his life every night defending Gotham City? And that touches on one of my big regrets with this book, is that I'd reached out to probably the first email that I sent when I was trying to line up interviews for this was to Norm Brayfogle. My favorite Batman artist. He's the artist on Detective Comics when I was starting to read them in 1989, and I'd had plenty of email and Facebook and online exchanges with him over the years leading up to his stroke, which led to a rapid and steady decline in his health. And I had an unanswered email that I sent to him, not very long at all before he passed away. Telling him, just how much I'd love to get him on the phone and just talk about his work on the series. So it's that's one of those interviews that I just wish. Obviously, I wish Norm were still with us, hale and hearty, overall. But I was thinking about him a lot as I was writing this book.
He was the some of the first Batman comics I ever saw were Norm Brayfogle. So I was very impressionable on Batman, and he was one of the first images I ever saw of Batman. So he's definitely, I don't know that I could pick a favorite artist, but he's amongst 2 or 3 others as my favorite.
Yeah. So he passed away shortly after I started doing my interviews and my research for the book. So I did reach out to him, and I didn't hear back from him. I did get to speak to people like, another amazing guy, Jordan Gorfinkel, Batman editor, who worked with him. Mike Friedrich, who was Norm's agent, Alan Grant, who wrote so many of Norm's best stories. So I did get some great people. Denny O'Neil too, sharing their memories of him and working with him. But it was again such an amazing process and just a wonderful experience, start to finish.
Well, I appreciate your choice of story for being a very original. I've never ever come across anybody that said that that's their favorite Batman comic. So that's great. 2 more quick. Who's your favorite Batman villain?
Okay. And again, I kind of hinted at this with my live action response, but I'm a sucker for a good Riddler story.
Yeah. And then last, sorry, go ahead.
I'm also in the market for a green suit with purple question marks on it. So if any tailors are listening, want to hook up the author of their favorite Batman history, let me know.
Not even just for Halloween, just something that you want year round.
Weddings, funerals, graduations, whatever events come up.
Yeah, why not? And then, who's your favorite character in Batman's world besides Batman?
It's got to be Robin. Yeah, he's been there. He's been there from the beginning almost. Less than a year into Batman's history, he came along and has been part of so many important stories over the years. And I think, I'm a fan of the dynamic duo more than the lone Dark Knight.
Cool. Very cool. And last question for you. What's next for Andrew Farago, and does it include The Dark Knight?
I'll mention, this month we're doing to celebrate the West Coast debut of Batman, The Definitive History of the Dark Knight. The Cartoon Art Museum is going to be hosting a pop-up exhibition of Batman movie costumes. So I've got here in the Bay Area, an incredible costume designer and fabricator named Alan Levine, who is in charge of a studio called the Bronze Armory. And he's bringing in 6 Batman movie costumes for an exhibition here. I'm really I'm excited about that. I'm excited about the book going on sale worldwide October 29th. And I haven't picked my next book project yet, but I just kind of want to enjoy a little bat time this year. And I'm sure my phone will ring soon enough, and we'll have a new project picked out.
They'll ask if that Fraggle Rock project is still on your mind, if that's where you want to go next.
I'm not rolling anything out. So after the Turtles, I said, well, I don't think I can ever do a project like this again, where I'm dealing with movies and cartoons and comic books and toys and all this other stuff. And then I had to, of course, get roped into doing the biggest possible project. I don't think there's any character that even compares to Batman on that front, as far as just how much material, how much research would have to go into it. But I never say never, and I don't want to rule anything out, because then next thing I know, I'll be neck deep in reference material again.
Yeah, it's probably just like you always hear of somebody just got done running a marathon and somebody asks them, "Are you ready to run another marathon?" It's like, well, let's just give me some time to recover and breathe, and then we can discuss.
Exactly.
All right. Well, that's all I have for you, Andrew. This was a lot of fun. I can't thank you enough for this. Where can people find and follow you for when the inevitable announcement of the next project?
Okay. If you want to follow, I'm Andrew Farago on Twitter. That's a great place to keep up with me. AndrewFarago.com. I've got an Andrew Farago cartoons page on Facebook. I'm pretty easy to find. You can look me up on the Cartoon Art Museum's website, cartoonart.org. And happy to talk Batman anytime.
All right, you said it. I'm marking it down.
Okay.
You got it. All right. Well, thanks a lot, Andrew.
Thank you.
All right, bye-bye.
Okay, well, that was just like the book, an exhaustive interview, and
full of so much good bat information, though.
Yeah. You were telling me the rapid fire questions were some of the better responses.
I mean, I love rapid fire questions, and I did that with shameless plug with Lee Bermejo a few weeks ago when I interviewed
that was
him.
Cool. But that was a cool article.
Thank you. I wanted to ask him a couple too, and I never know if it's like somebody's of their caliber is going to be like, this is kind of annoying or whatever. But I was like, Andrew, you've done so much research on Batman on top of already being a lifelong fan. It'd be cool now with your encyclopedia brain. What are some of your favorites? And then I'm not going to say like I could have predicted like any of them. Like his animated movie being Mask of the Phantasm, I'm like that one. I'm not surprised. But then when he said his comic story of Batman Shadow of the Bat number 13, it's one of those.
Like you would have just normally heard like
Long Halloween, which is what I would say.
Year one, Long Halloween, Dark Knight Returns, Hush. Like those are your
and so then he throws this one out there, and it's great that I was caught off guard with it, but also I'm kind of like, my God, I've never read that one, so I can add nothing to this. I can't add anything to it. But then luckily, as soon as we were done with the interview, I got on DC Universe. And it was there. I downloaded it and read it right away. And that is a good issue. Fully contained.
Is it one? It's one and done. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
See, that's what I was saying about like Batman Confidential. What did I say? What it was? 49.
49.
Yeah. See,
come on, DC Universe, put that one on there.
For real, they should.
But yeah, I mean, Andrew was great. I asked him beforehand, like, just to make sure I didn't talk too much, which we end up doing on the podcast. His restriction on time. He didn't really have restriction on time. I went a lot longer than I was planning to, but I mean, we just kept going. He let me ask all the questions I had for him, and he would have kept talking more if I'd have asked him to, but I already felt bad keeping him so long. But yeah, very appreciative. That was really cool talking to him. He knows so much about Batman, which of course, if you read this book, you know that already. But then also the fact that like he also wrote that Ninja Turtles book, The Visual History, which is I mean that's a tease for the Batman book because that one was great, but man, that's like half the size of this Batman one. So yeah, Andrew Farago, really cool book, really awesome. Go buy it. Rick Shoe,
buy it
at Shoe Rick. Ask him to buy one and send him your address. He'll do it.
Yeah. Just get on his good side.
Exactly.
Yeah, tell them that
You love the Cowboys.
I love the Cowboys. Last Jedi is my favorite Star Wars movie.
Yep.
And that'll do it.
And the prequels are underrated. And then you are in. You are so in.
And then rank something.
Yep. So yeah, but there we go.
Cool. Yeah. So I get anything else about that interview you want to say?
No, it was great. Track down Andrew's pretty active on Twitter. I'd follow him.
That's true.
He's got such a, yet again, like encyclopedia knowledge of cool pop culture stuff.
Yeah, he's a pretty good follow on Twitter. That's for sure.
Yeah. It's, very insightful. Which is why I wrote this book for Insight Editions. Terrible. But yeah, cool dude. Great book. The end.
Cool. Go get it. So, anything you want to plug before we get out of here?
Until the day that I die, I'm going to plug my interview with Lee Bermejo on Batman on Film. Just because I never thought that would ever happen. One of, if not the favorite artist of mine. He's fantastic. Got to talk to him and meet him, and that interview's on Batman on Film. Also, I have Harleen #2 from Black Label, most recent review. That book is freaking phenomenal. How
many issues there are going to be in that?
There's only going to be 3.
3,
which is
three
also
okay.
Yeah, because they just also there's another Joker Harley Criminal Insanity, and I just found out after I bought the first one of that's a 9-part series. And so I'm like, oh crap. $54 on a comic series. I don't know. So this one's just 3. So that's definitely manageable. And the art's fantastic. The story is fantastic. Yeah. There's so many
I like the covers. I've seen there's a couple different covers for that.
Yeah, that's
good stuff.
Yeah, that's good. And I don't want to butcher his name. The author's name. He's also the artist. Septic or something. I'm sorry. And then also behind that, another review for Batman Curse of the White Knight, which is also phenomenal. So,
and we're getting we're getting our first White Knight spinoff book this year.
Mr.
We're getting
Freeze.
Von Freeze, what written by Sean Murphy, but art and inking and all that by Klaus Janson, right?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, so that's going to be cool. And that comes out 2 days before my birthday. So happy birthday to me.
And we're getting that. And we're getting that Dark Knight Returns addendum featuring Carrie Kelly.
Yeah.
This year also. So much good. We just don't stop.
Batman comic fans,
it's an embarrassment of riches. It's awesome.
Great stuff. Oh yeah, then I'm on Twitter at Lauer _Ryan. Lauer spelled like lower. There you go.
All right. Well, just listen to this podcast. We've been putting in all this work for forever on all these shows.
This interview took a long time to get the interview set up with Andrew too. So.
Yeah, that's true. We've been asking. You were asking him about it for months ago. Leading up to this book because we were so excited about it.
So excited about it, and he had a lot of cons that he was attending and stuff too. And he had
one of which I was at.
Yeah, that's right. And so then finally, once those were done, then we could get that. Sorry to interrupt, but there you go. It's like whew.
No, yeah, it's good. Yeah. So so just go back, listen to our Joker episode, listen to our New York Comic Con episode. It's all good stuff. Follow me on Twitter at SMB_Ryan and the Batman Podcast Network at BatPod Network. And that'll do it. That wraps up today's episode. For Ryan, I'm Ryan. Thanks for listening, and we'll catch you next time.
Hey now! You've been listening to the Batman on Film podcast, a proud member and the sponsor of the Batman Podcast Network, BatmanPodcastNetwork.com. You can listen to the BOF Podcast on iTunes, YouTube, Stitcher, Google Play Music, iHeartRadio, Spreaker, TuneIn, and wherever good podcasts like this one can be found. Want to advertise on the BOF Podcast? Go to advertisecast.com/the Batman on Film Con podcast. Follow Jet on Twitter at Batman on Film and on BOF's Facebook fan page at facebook.com/jet.batmanonfilm. Email Jet via jet@batman-on-film.com. I'm announcer Rachel. Thanks for listening.